Hey Ted, we are back with another video. The page South African late news. Yeah, the Senzo Meyiwa case will resume on the 13th of October 2025. But one thing for sure that we know is that Chico Twala had a meeting with Shadrack Sibiya. In that meeting, it is alleged that that is where the plan to protect Longa Twala was hatched. But let us listen into Brigadier Gininda also telling the court something that is not truthful because we know based on Absolom Zungu. But let's listen into Brigadier Gininda when he was testifying during the Senzo Meyiwa case. Let us listen in and hear what he had to say. He had a lot to say.
When I was walking away, my lord, I just don't remember which of the two members called me to say he wants to speak to me. This is now accused two. Uma sengihamba-ke angisakhumbule-ke ukuthi imuphi-ke kulamalunga-ke esiphoyisa-ke noma amaphoyisa-ke alangibiza esho-ke ukuthi-ke umsolo wesibili-ke ufisa ukuthi akhulume nami. My lord, when I returned, what he then said amounted to what led to the arrangement of the confession that was taken by Lieutenant General Rapado. Uma sengibuyela kuyena-ke awakusho kumina-ke ikona-ke ekwaholela ekuthini-ke kube sekunalesi statement-ke manje esikhona-ke lesi esabhalwa noma esathathwa uyena uKolonel Rapado. And he was cautioned, my lord, in terms of his constitutional rights. I've dealt with this thing. I just don't want to burden the record by repeating the same thing, my lord. But I did caution him in terms of his constitutional rights when he made a confession, because in essence, he
What
confession
confession?
was involved. He implicated accused number 1, 3, 4, and 5. Yeah, just a minute. Okay. Mase kulokho-ke manje ngase-ke manje ngimtshela-ke futhi ngimxwayisa-ke ngamalungelo akhe-ke ngoba kulokho-ke awayesekukhuluma-ke manje-ke la wayesevuma khona-ke futhi-ke esho-ke futhi nokubandakanyeka kwakhe-ke noma ekhuluma efaka yena-ke umangalelo wokuqala, umsolo wokuqala, owesithathu, owesine kanye futhi nowesihlanu. Further mentioning my recollection, my lord, Mrs. Kelly Kumalo as the trigger point or the person who hired them to kill the deceased. Kusho-ke nokuthi-ke umuntu-ke okwawuyena-ke oweza-ke kubona-ke ukukhulumisana nabo-ke ukuthi-ke wabulale umufi kwaba uyena uMiss Kelly Khumalo. I further recall the vehicle, the mention of a VW Polo being mentioned, my lord, by accused number 2 as the vehicle that was used during the commission of this offense. Ngiyakhumbula-ke esho nokusho-ke yena-ke umsolo wesibili-ke ekhuluma ngemoto-ke VW Polo. Yes. Esho ukuthi iyona-ke imoto eyayisetshenziswa-ke uma ngabe kwenziwa kona lokhu. I further recall, my lord, that you mentioned that accused 3 was the one with the dreadlocks, and that is the person who fired the shot that killed the deceased. Ngiyakhumbula esho futhi-ke nokuthi-ke umsolo wesithathu uyena-ke owayenama dreadlocks futhi-ke uyena-ke owadubula-ke umufi ukuthi aze ashone. He further placed the role, my lord, of each accused. To say in other words, accused number 1 was standing outside, which indeed, my lord, was for the first time. I actually got a collaboration to confirm what accused 1 said in the 2 previous confessions.
Yeah. There was Advocate Paloi in court. Advocate Paloi was leading Brigadier Gininda when he was testifying. Now, Gininda is narrating the so-called confession of Bongandans. But the first thing that is suspicious about this confession is that it is not the same as the confession of Sibiya. So now, if they both confessed, so now why would they confess to something different? That is a valid question, because if the confession was truthful, they were going to say the same thing. But Sibiya and Mwantanzi had a different confession. This shows that the confession was cooked by the police. If you tell the truth, you tell the truth once, and the truth is the same. So the police made a mistake there to get 2 confessions. It would be more believable if they got 1 confession, maybe from Tanzi alone. Then that confession was not going to contradict any other confession. Secondly, in that so-called confession of Wantanzi, he alleges that the shooter was Kadlamnube, accused number 3, whatever. But the cell phone records of Kadlamnube shows that at the same time when Senzo was shot, Kadlamnube's cell phone pinged at Johannesburg CPD, meaning that Mnube was not in Vosloorus. He was in Johannesburg CPD. So Mnube could not have shot Senzo Meyiwa. That shows that confession is fake. That confession was coerced out of abundance. Based on the evidence of abundance during the trial within the trial, he said he only confessed because he was tortured, he was choked by those police officers. That's the only reason why he confessed. Then the state does not have any other evidence that supports that confession. Remember that the DNA expert came to court and said, based on the DNA sample that was taken from the house, it does not match any of the 5 accused, meaning that all 5 accused were not in that house. So that confession is debunked by cell phone records of Kadlamnube. It is debunked by the DNA that was provided by the state. So the DNA does not come from the defense. So their own DNA expert says, no, these guys were not in the house. So if you still believe in the state case, I don't know what because it's clear this confession was fabricated. And then now we now know that Absolom Zungu said Brigadier Gininda tried to get a statement from him. Gininda alleged said to Ulo, Baba Absolom Zungu, he said to him, you must implicate accused number 1 and accused number 3. After saying that, he promised him a trip overseas as well as some cash. That is very important. It's the evidence that's going to come from the 13th of October this year. So now, once that has been brought to court, it will further shows that Gininda's way of investigation was not legit. If it is proven that Indeshu Baba Absolom Zungu is correct, then it would mean Brigadier Gininda lied under oath. And anyone that lies under oath needs to be charged and then come before a judge. If found guilty, Gininda can be sent to prison. That is based on Absolom Zungu's statement alone, because Absolom Zungu says Gininda is lying. He never gave him any confession or any statement. So now we now know that Gininda's credibility is in question. Then Absolom Zungu also went against his own son, Absolom Zungu. He said his own son admitted to him, Uguchi, he only testified in court because he was promised a job promotion within the South African Police Services. So Absolom Zungu allegedly lied in court because he wanted to get a promotion. So he implicated accused 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 because he wanted something in exchange. So this whole circus that you see in court is just a waste of time because it is a total fabrication. The real case will begin once docket 75 is brought before a fair judge. So once this case is done, I'm sure Racha is going to find these guys guilty because Racha has already written his judgment. The defense will have to go to the appeal at the Supreme Court of Appeal in Bloemfontein. That is where I think the defense or the accused will get a fair trial there because those 5 judges are not like Rata. Those 5 judges are fair and objective. Unlike Lento Lega Rata, evidence. You saw when he gave judgment, section 174, the discharge, he was quoting wrong evidence, saying that there were 5 intruders, but the state said there were only 2 intruders, and he was confusing accused number 4 and number 5. So Urata, it shows that he's not listening to this case. So my hope now is for the Supreme Court of Appeal to clear these guys, and thereafter, docket 75 must come to court, and thereby uthatha abantu abaningi laba aba complicit with the fabrication and the tampering of the crime scene. We know that Shadrack Sibiya held a meeting at the Kumel household just before the arrival of Sergeant Mosia, meaning that wabamba umhlangano before forensic ifike endlini ithathe ama-sample, meaning that the sample that were taken by Mosia were already contaminated because of that meeting that was held in the house. So Shadrack Sibiya needs to account for his actions. I know that they are talking about him in the Madanga Commission of Inquiry, but Sibiya needs to account firstly on the Senzo Meyiwa case because of the way he conducted that investigation. Sibiya was not an investigator, but anyway, he came to the crime scene and held a meeting with politicians. That is according to Advocate Tefo, and it was confirmed by Abotuana Madlala with yes, bakhuluma noSibiya on the day when Senzo was shot. But Usibiya, surprisingly enough, was not called by Baloyi to testify as one of those police officers that assisted in the case. Clearly, Baloyi akafuni says something because he knows that Sibiya did not do things accordingly. And then there's this issue of that meeting between Usibiya and Chico Twala. That meeting, yasho avete ukuthi Chico Twala allegedly bribed Shadrack Sibiya ngo-1 million rand ukuze avikele uLongo Twala. That is something that has to be investigated because it is severe and serious. You cannot have a deputy police commissioner having such allegations over his head and not being investigated. So I think Docket 75 is going to play a role in dealing with all these people that were lying in the Meyiwa case. Firstly, Sibiya, then all those people that are in the house, the likes of Kelly Kumalo, Zandi Kumalo, Longo Twala, and others. We know based on a statement by Mlungu Hlope that the trigger man was Longo Twala. Allegedly, Senzo Meyiwa was trying to separate the fight between Uzandi Kumalo and Longo Twala. Unfortunately, the gun went off and Senzo lost his life. That is an allegation made by Tumelo Madlala when he spoke to Mlungu Hlope. But Tumelo Madlala now is saying something else because he had a chance to fabricate his evidence. But initially, after Senzo was shot, Tumelo Madlala phoned Mlungu Hlope and told him the truth that ulongwe wadubula umuntu ngephutha. So that must come before Docket 275 and those people that are in the house be charged for all those lies and fabrication. And I think Warrant Officer Makubo should be the lead investigator because he is the one that opened the docket with an assistance of Joyce Butelis. But that's the docket that needs to come to court because it got real evidence against the people in the house. Not this nonsense Baloyi. Baloyi uti. Constable Zungu was at the hostel on the day that Senzo lost his life. But he calls no other witnesses to verify the information that was provided by Constable Zungu. He could have called Kwabini and said, Kwabini, okay, come to court. And then asked him, say, Kwabini, did Constable Zungu come to your house on the day that Senzo was shot? Kwabini would easily say yes or no, because those are the two answers that are available. If indeed Constable Zungu was there, then it will show that he's telling the truth. If he says no, then it will prove further that Constable Zungu is lying about seeing those guys at the hostel. But Baloyi decided not to call Kwabini because he knows that Kwabini might contradict Constable Zungu, thereby destroying his entire case. And another thing, we do not have the AVL of Constable Zungu till today. As a police officer that was driving a police car, we should have his AVL because we know for the fact that police cars are fitted with AVLs. So Baloyi is misleading the court because the AVL would not support his narrative. So the defense must strike hard once they get to that point because Absolom Zungu will prove that his son is lying about being at the crime scene. And I do not think that they can debunk Absolom Zungu because he's got no reason to lie in this case. He's an old man that is tired of all the lies. He's tired of his name being mentioned in court by Brigadier Gininda for no good reason. So I'm praying that Absolom Zungu, wherever he is safe because he is the key in debunking that evidence provided by Constable Zungu. Remember that during the judgment of Section 174 discharge, Rata said Absolom Zungu was a believable witness. Now I want to hear him or see his face when he hears the evidence of Ubaba Absolom Zungu. Will he say the same thing about Constable Zungu afterwards? We shall wait and see. But I'm happy that the credibility of Gininda, the credibility of Constable Zungu will be tarnished once Ubaba Absolom Zungu take that stand. It is very important. And the other important issue is that all the people that were doing the investigation in this case, that is under docket 636, they must all be investigated afterwards. Starting from Ubaloi, Gininda, and the rest of these police officers that were under Gininda, Abo or Rapadu and Omukhan and so on, because I believe that they misled the court. They know very well that the 5 men that are before court are innocent, yet they continue to keep them in prison. If you look at Ntanzi has got no any other previous conviction. His only crime is this of Senzo Meyiwa case, and we know that he's innocent of that crime as well. So Ntanzi has been in jail since June 2020, so more than 5 years now. For what? Nothing. So once this case is done, those guys that were investigating this case, they must be charged because they did something very wrong. And I'm sure that Ulo, Advocate Dev can also assist because he says he got more information on Advocate Baloi that he did not reveal. So we shall wait and hear what Dev says, which in the evidence against Advocate Baloi. But seriously, Baloi knows very well that these guys are innocent, but he continues to prosecute them because he just wants to close this case and fool the public to think that they have found the shooter of Senzo Meyiwa. But we know very well that that is not justice. Justice will only be obtained in docket 375, and we shall wait. The case will resume on the 13th of October 2025, and that is the time when Mnisi will open his case and say, "My Lord, I am ready." And I'm praying very hard that Absolom Zungu is safe. No one Officer Makubo is safe because we know that earlier this year, the house of Warrant Officer Makubo was attacked by 2 guys. Luckily, Makubo was not at the house, but his son pressed the panic button, and then those thugs that were attacking him ran away via a Toyota Corolla. So we know very well that the life of Makubo is under threat because he does not support the state narrative of an intruder. So I pray that Makubo is also safe, the same way I'm praying for Absolom Zungu, because those are some of the key witnesses. And we must also think of Joyce Butelis. Remember that she had to be demoted because she was investigating Docker 275. So all the police officers that were investigating Docker 275 were punished severely. As we speak today, Makubo was forced to resign from the police because of all this constant harassment. So once this case is done, the Pope shall dance. Go Laba, go Bedel. But anyway, thank you for watching.